There are lots of questions about the budget that we're going to have to put together to get ready for the next school year, 2011 and 2012. And as we prepare for our budget here in Carteret County's public schools, we have to think about three buckets of revenue, three sources for money to take care of what needs to be done in the classroom. And I want to walk you through where we stand, what we're looking at, and focus in particular on the state source of income. So think of three buckets. We get money from the federal government. That's one bucket of money. We then get money from our county. That's a second bucket of money. And the third bucket of money is the state bucket, and that's the biggest one. In North Carolina, we are faced with, around the state, a real financial problem. North Carolina is looking at a budget shortfall of approximately $3.5 billion for the next fiscal year. And that includes our school year, 2011-2012. And the reason for that is federal stabilization monies are going away. And another problem is that taxes that had been levied to increase revenues to get us through the last couple of years are sunsetting. Plus, there are some non-recurring cuts that will end. And the economic recovery is the fourth item. It's been very, very slow to bring us back to where we were. And the state relies on personal income tax and also sales tax. So if people aren't working, they're surely not spending any money. So that's a double whammy there. Public school budgets have been cut for 3 consecutive years. We know that very well here in Carteret County's public schools. And when you think about the state expenditures, about 40% of their budget goes toward public education. So when they have to cut in Raleigh, they look to the biggest place for that, and if 40% is public education, that's where they'll be looking. State funds approximately equal $7.2 billion for our public schools. So think about that. $7.2 billion go to the public schools around the state. And the LEAs, that's our school system and others like us, rely on that for about 65% of their budget, and 25% from the county, and about 10% from federal sources, and another 1% from fines and forfeitures and things like that. In Carteret County, we're about 60% from the state funded. 59% of our budget comes from state revenues, and 27.6% comes from the county. And here in Carteret County, 11% comes from the federal government. Since 1969, when the state was providing about 52% of its general fund, that's more than half of the money that came to the state for public instruction, K to 12, we've seen that dip over the years from 1969, 1970, all the way to the present. It's down to 35% of their general fund. Now think about that. That's about a 15% decrease in the money that they use for public instruction from their general fund. And that's been a gradual decline, but eventually from 50 to 35. You say, well, how does North Carolina stack up with the other states in terms of investing in public education? North Carolina ranks 45th in the nation in per pupil spending. That information comes to us from experts at North Carolina's Justice Center's Education and Law Project. They released this report that said that North Carolina's public school system faces further cuts in an already bare bones funding scheme. And according to the most recent U.S. Census data, they've found in their study that North Carolina ranks 45th in the nation in per pupil spending and 43rd in the nation in per pupil expenditure. I'm quoting from this report, and it says that North Carolina ranks behind those states that I've mentioned, South Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, and Kentucky. And Education Week, a very important publication on education, says that North Carolina ranked 46th in terms of funding adequacy and equity, and Education Week gave the state a D+, the lowest grade any state received for that adequacy and equity. The Education Law Center rated state public school funding based on funding level, distribution, and effort, the amount of spending compared to state per capita gross domestic product, and the number of school-aged children attending the state's public schools. North Carolina, and this is sad, North Carolina was one of only 4 states to receive below average ratings on all 4 indicators, including a D for funding distribution and an F for effort. So they need to be able to do more for public education in Raleigh. And why are schools on the chopping block? As I said before, they're the biggest chunk of the general fund, more than about 40%. Some of you say, what about using lottery funds? Lottery funds do help, and I'll explain that in a minute or so, but they make up only 3.9% of the education budget. And they're designated for specific purposes: K-3 teachers, more at 4 programs, school construction, and scholarships. In Carteret County, there has been a wise implementation of lottery funds. You have to think about what a lottery dollar will bring in. For every lottery dollar, 30 cents goes to education. 59 cents out of that dollar goes to those who are gambling. The other 12% is divided among the need for advertising, the need to administrate the program, and the retailers get about 7% of it because they've given of their businesses and they have their employers selling the tickets. And then there are some monies given to the individuals who created the software. So that's how you divide that lottery dollar. In Carteret County, for the 09-10 school year, we received $2,295,556 from the lottery fund. And that was divided among those 4 areas. For instance, our Board of Commissioners have incurred debt that they must pay back to help us with our schools. They help us build schools, they help us refurbish schools, they help with the upkeep of schools. And what they've done is they've been paying back the principal and interest on those loans to about the tune of $7 million a year. Well, last year, $1,034,892 came to Carteret County for school construction. So $1 million of that went toward paying back the principal on the loans. So that really helped. Instead of taxpayers having to pay $7 million, this way the lottery funds helped them to the point where they got $1 million and they only need to pay $6 million. Another $260,000 went to provide 209 scholarships for students to go to the university system, NC State or UNC or any of their satellites, and the community colleges. The More at 4 program, which helps students after school, received 99 slots. So of the 160-some children who go there, 99 were paid for with $500,000 from lottery money. And the last part that the lottery funds take care of is to reduce class size in grades K-3. We get 10 teachers paid for with the monies that come from the lottery funds. So that's the last piece of it. Now, some say, what about administration? Why don't you just cut administration and leave the teachers alone? Well, if we were to cut all the administrators in the state as well as DPI, we would probably save about $480 million, but that's going to fall way, way short of the billion that we're going to be short. And then there would be no one to help with leadership, no one to evaluate and help teachers grow. And I think we would not be in good shape. But here in Carteret County, we've been addressing administration level, and we have restricted and not replaced, and we've cut a lot of administrative positions. I'll talk to you about that in a minute or so. Why not cut out testing? It'll only save $11 million, not quite enough. Race to the top monies, only $400 million is coming over the next 4 years to all of the LEAs, all of the county systems. We're going to get $180,000 next year, and that's more than we had, but it doesn't do much in the way of helping us with a big budget impact. Where are we? We're at the cliff. We're afraid to fall forward into an abyss. We're going to need all the support we can muster to help folks in Raleigh understand how important it is for them to fund education first before they go to all the other programs, because it's important for our children to get the kind of instruction and education that they need to carry us into the next century. Teachers are nation builders. We've heard that in our president's address last week. And we also understand how important it is that teachers are able to do their job and to have the right class size. What we're looking at here in Carteret County, the impact of the buckets. Remember I was talking about that? We're going to be $3 million short in the federal bucket. We're going to be, if the state enacts a 5% reduction like they've been saying they're going to do, we'll be another $3 million short in that bucket. So we're looking at a real hole. $3 million federal bucket, $3 million in the state bucket. What we've done is we've saved money by reducing jobs. We've gotten some federal money in the form of a federal tax or a federal jobs bill. We've put aside $1.3 million there. We've been cutting back on substitutes. We've been saving with energy. And with some fund balance, we think that we'll be able to reduce the federal bucket to $1 million short. But if the state were to enact the 5% cut or greater, we're still out $3 million. That'll be a $4 million hole. How are we going to handle that? Well, we've already cut a lot of programs. We are gone from looking at things. We've cut a lot of staff. We're going to have to go deeper. If we think about a staff member being a $58,000 item, that's a professional teacher. If we think about a teacher assistant costing about $29,000, then to take care of $1 million in the federal hole, it would take about 22 teachers, or a combination of 13 teachers and 8 TAs. That will equal about 21.25, and that will take care of $1 million. If the state cuts us 5%, and we spread that among all the possibilities, regular ed teachers, media coordinators, guidance counselors, vocational education teachers, TAs, special ed teachers, all the way down to at-risk teachers, central administration, ESL teachers, we would probably have to cut 71.12 positions to raise the other $3 million. So combine 20 from the federal pot, 21.25, with the 71.12, we're talking about 92.37 positions that we would have to cut. And think of the impact that will have on class size and instruction and student achievement. It's enormous. I can't begin to comprehend that. So we have to make sure that our legislators in Raleigh understand how important it is that they fund education first, and then look elsewhere to save money to handle their budget deficits. We in the past have already restricted and cut positions, 48 for the 08-09 season, 23.5 for last year, 09, this year actually. Those are things that we've been doing all along. We've not replaced central administration people when they've retired. We've cut 3 positions there. We have been very careful with administration to try to keep the cuts away from the classroom, but now we have nothing else to look to but to go to classroom cuts, and we don't want that to happen. We need to make sure that the folks in Raleigh understand how crucial it is that they fund education first. Thank you, and have a great day.